This is the Cambridge CXN V2, and the worst thing I can say about it is that the chassis feels a bit sort of flimsy and cheap. That's the worst thing I can say about this product. So let's start with its basic core functionality. In essence, this is a DAC and a streamer, but we'll come to the streamer bit in a moment. Let's talk about the DAC, because we can look at the back panel. We've got balanced outputs, very useful. Single-ended outputs, but I mainly use balanced. And then we've got a USB input for computers. Over here we've got coaxial inputs. Remember this from the DAX video I did recently? Coaxial, Toslink. So that might be for a CD player, that might be for your TV. We've got digital outputs as well. I'll come back to those later. Now to get data, streaming, data, people love it when I say data. To get data streaming into this device, we can use the Ethernet socket here, or we can use Wi-Fi, which is actually a dongle, so we don't have an ugly aerial sort of sticking up. So it's a fairly comprehensive back panel. It's a very, very comprehensively spec'd unit. So to go deeper, we need to plug it in. Into the rack behind me, I've put the Cambridge CXN V2. I've connected it to the Hegel H390 amplifier, for reasons I'll explain in a moment. And also on the input side, I've connected a PS Audio CD transport into one of the coax inputs. I've also hooked in my Intel NUC, which drives my projector for when I'm watching TV. And that goes into the CXN V2's USB input. So that's how I've got it set up. GoldenEar speakers. So yeah, we're set to go. Cambridge give us 3 ways to control this device. They supply a very nice, attractive-ish black remote wand, so we can, this is the kind of thing my dad would like. And I think my dad would also appreciate the buttons actually on the device, so you can actually get hands-on with it and use the rotary encoder on the side to navigate the internal menu system, which runs very smoothly. It's very intuitive. Large print, I think my dad would dig that. But I think most people would use Cambridge's own Stream Magic app. So you can access internet radio through this. You can access UPnP streaming through this. And that also includes inserting a USB drive into the front panel. That's powered by UPnP. And yes, it does play content gaplessly. Another big win for Cambridge there. Now DAC chip nerds will want to know that there are a pair of Wolfson WM8740 chips inside this device. So that is the kind of the engine room of the DA conversion. But I always remind people of this. Don't get hung up on the DAC chip model number, because the entire DAC circuit sound is also determined by its power supply and its output stage. And also in this case, Cambridge have implemented upsampling for all streaming inputs. So they have this thing called the ATF2 upsampling engine. So everything is upsampled to 24-bit 384 kilohertz. Now, why do they do this? Well, it might be that that 24-bit 384 kilohertz data rate, just keeping everybody happy. It might be that that data rate is the optimal data rate to get the best performance from the Wolfson DAC chips. We'll talk more about upsampling later in the year, but just know that it's not just done to add more information, because it can't do that. There is no more information to add. Upsampling doesn't add stuff. It just moves the operational data rate of the DAC chip to a higher level, and that maybe it produces better sound. We don't know, because we don't know what it sounds like without the upsampling on the streaming inputs. Anyway, I'm blathering on about nerdy stuff. Let's move on. So all of the ingredients that Cambridge have put into this streaming DAC, so the power supply, the DAC chips, the output stage, and the upsampling engine, means that it sounds somewhat warm, somewhat rounded, somewhat burnished in the top end. So compared to the DAC inside the Hegel H390, that's why I picked it, because people often ask me, does this external DAC sound better than the DAC inside the Hegel? Compared to the Hegel, the Cambridge doesn't quite pull apart the musical strands like a phyllo pastry kind of thing. Doesn't quite pull them apart quite as cleanly as the Hegel. And it loses some of the sort of what I call crisp fried definition in the top end. So I don't think you would call the Cambridge CXN V2 a neutral sounding DAC. There is some color there for sure. One of the great lies of the audio world is that turntables, vinyl playback, sounds rich and warm, because turntables can sound cold and hard, rich and warm, and everything in between. It just depends upon the hardware combination. Anyway, but if you want a streaming DAC that sounds a little bit rich, a little bit warm, then this CXN2 from Cambridge could be a good jumping off point if you want to move from vinyl to streaming. But for me, I think the advantage of that sort of richness or warmness, or that sort of more humid top end that the Cambridge offers, it really helps certain kinds of music. So last week I was playing some Darren Price remixes of Underworld from his SoundCloud channel, and the Cambridge just made it sound just more agreeable, and I was less aware of the low bit rate that SoundCloud's streaming. Equally, that sort of top end softness, a kind of a lack of resolve. It's just not a very sharp, clean, incisive top end, not at all. It's just, yeah, you probably get the idea by now anyway. But it really helped soften the lossy nature of Spotify streaming some Style Council. I was listening to their greatest hits from, I don't know, 20 years ago, whatever. And I wasn't sitting there, as I probably do a little bit more with the Hegel, I wasn't sitting there going, oh my God, I can hear that this Spotify stream is not as good as a Tidal stream. Yes, I made a video about Spotify and its importance for beginner audiophiles, but today I'm talking about Spotify from a different point of view, from the point of the more established audiophile who, after time with all this gear, you do get to hear that Tidal and Qobuz sounds better than Spotify. But anyway, so that sort of more agreeable take on Spotify helps me listen for longer. And that's also true of some of the bastardized remasters that have surfaced in the last 20 years. And I'm thinking specifically of the 2004 remaster of the Waterboys, This Is the Sea, which actually is essential listening for one track called Beverly Penn, which is just amazing, but it's a bonus track. But that remaster sounds hard, even played through Tidal, through Roon. So does those remaster of Infected, which came out in 2001, 2002. It sounds hard and aggressive, and the Cambridge takes the edge off. So if you listen to lossy sources or less than stellar remasters, again, this Cambridge streaming DAC might be a good choice for you. So all of this has been a slow build to really where I want to get to, like this streaming DAC's killer feature set. And that is that, like the NAIM Unity Atom, it gives us the Holy Trinity of streaming. It gives us Chromecast, it gives us Spotify, and it gives us Roon Ready. The Holy Trinity, 1, 2, 3. And this is what I'm really excited about with this streaming DAC. Again, like the NAIM, auto switching between inputs. So I could be listening to something on Roon and go, nah, want to play this other thing over on Spotify because it's only on Spotify. Click play on that and it auto switches over. I don't have to leave my couch. I don't have to reach for the remote. Don't even have to engage with the buttons on the front panel. If you don't do Roon, you're also looked after, because inside the Stream Magic app are options for Qobuz and Tidal logins. So you can run Qobuz and Tidal through Cambridge's own app. And there's another thing as well, is I really don't listen to a lot of internet radio, but because the integration on this device is so good and so easy to access, like it remembers, like last played back station. So I've been coming back to BBC Six Music quite often during the last few weeks. So not only do we get the Holy Trinity, we get like these extra nice little touches, and it's these sort of, it's the little things. These little things really matter. And there are more little things that I want to make you aware of that this streaming DAC, this CXN V2 from Cambridge, offers, because, as I said at the start of the video, the worst thing I can say about it is just the flimsy nature of the lid. Like, it doesn't feel like a €1,000 piece, but functionally it is absolutely, but it's just flawless. So of those little things that I've really enjoyed, the web interface that treats me like an adult, it doesn't baby me. The elegant menu system on the device when I'm using the hardware controls, it just feels very mature. It's not janky, it doesn't lag. It has a super broad range of connection possibilities. I don't just have to come out of it with the analog inputs. There are two digital outputs, this bit of Toslink and coax, that I can then in this particular case, that I have used to feed the DAC inside the Hegel. So if you've already got an external DAC that you like more, you can still use that and then flip between that external DAC and the Cambridge's DAC for a different flavor. This is how I've been using it, actually. I've been going to the Hegel for some things, and then for lesser quality recordings, I've flipped over to the Cambridge DAC. On the back panel, the labels are also written what looks to be upside down. So when you're peering over the back, in the back of the rack, you can still read them. Another really nice touch. If I wake up in the morning and I want to play music straight away, just pull up my phone, click play on something, and the CXN V2 will auto start. It'll come out of standby. So again, it just makes life much easier. But possibly my favorite feature, actually, I'm going to call this from now on the Red Hot Chili Peppers button. And in my case, that's for when I'm listening to Roon, and then Roon cuts into Roon Radio, so it's swimming through Qobuz and Tidal and my local library, and playing similar sounding songs. Now occasionally it will go into Tidal and Qobuz and it will play the Red Hot Chili Peppers, which for me is possibly the worst thing I could ever hear. Now Cambridge don't make me fumble for my phone and go, oh my God, panic, panic, panic. Don't make me swipe it open and then pull up Roon. I can just reach the remote and then click the next button on the remote, and that means it jumps to the next track inside Roon Radio. So this is the Red Hot Chili Peppers button. Very, very useful for people like me. So if you're jumping from vinyl into streaming for the very first time, or you listen to a very broad range of streaming services, or the music that you like isn't always optimally recorded or mastered, you might want to have a closer look at this CXN V2 from Cambridge Audio, because it makes everything just more agreeable, and not just in the sonic sense, but in the functional sense. It's like a streaming DAC that was made for me, for my dad, for everybody really. This is an everyman piece of hi-fi. And that's probably the biggest compliment I could ever give any piece of hi-fi, because anybody could use it. I think it's wonderful. Anyway, if you like this video, smash the like button. And if you want to see more videos like this, you want to get notified, then smash the subscribe button and click the bell or something. And as always, thank you ever so much for watching.
Okay.
All right.
Where are you? There. Hello. Okay, go ahead.
All right, next. Everything that you can't do. No, that's not right. Or, and I think most people will use this, is the no, let me do that again, sorry. We'll talk more about all of these things have come together. No, let me start this bit again, sorry. The output stage, the power supply for the whole circuit. This has, I can't even talk, fuck. The Cambridge, for much of the music that I listen to, no, I'm fucking this up again, sorry.